Welcome to my two-part mini-series. Tonight we're going to be talking about stoves, why I've got so many of them really. We're going to figure out what's good, what's not, and what it is you really need to take on your next camping adventure. Cheers. So in true British fashion, the weather's taken a bit of a turn, so I've had to come inside. Please excuse the sewing machine in the background. That's not me playing with that at the moment. But yeah, hopefully you can get a good enough feel for what we have here. Now, let's get this out of the way. The Campingaz camping kitchen, is it called? Yep, the camping kitchen. This obviously isn't something you're going to want to go backpacking with. This is a family camping, car camping, kind of group cooking utensil. This stove is not light. It weighs a good couple of kilos. It's not something you would even attempt to stick in a backpack. Not just because of its physical size and weight, but because you've got to carry this with you. This is the fuel that you'll need to use with this stove. This is a relatively small one. You can get ones that will be as tall as me if you really need to. But I don't really rate these stoves. Now, okay, I use this all the time for family camping because it's really your only option. But it just doesn't cook that quickly. Even though it's got a regulator on it for the gas control, you don't really seem to get that much gas through it. So the burner's fairly small and the difference between full and minimum isn't really that great. Obviously, there's a fair amount of range in between there, but it doesn't seem to kind of do that much in between. Either you'll have it on simmer down at the minimum, or you'll have it on full for cooking. So I mean, something like this will boil a litre of water in about, well, in optimum conditions, about 10 minutes. Realistically, with a bit of wind and things like that, you're probably looking at about 12, 13 minutes just to boil a litre of water. Whereas something like this will do it in 3. So even though these are they're very handy, they're just not, I don't know, I just feel like they could do so much more with them. Now, Campingaz, in all fairness, do have newer versions with wind shielding built in and better thermal heat management with bigger burners. So to be honest, if I could get my hands on one of those, it'll probably make my life so much easier when I'm family camping. It'll probably change my mind really about kind of using these. At the moment, even if I'm out family camping and I need to boil up some water, I tend to just do it on one of these stoves, which we'll talk about in a minute, rather than bother using this. But I'm hoping that the Campingaz's newer versions are a lot better. So anyway, so that's that out of the way. Okay, next let's go to the Jetboil. Now the reason I'm going to this next is that Jetboil really were the first people that, at least that I'm aware of, to introduce the all-in-one cook system. Now, inside of this pot, this might look like a nice big sippy cup, but inside here, I have my burner. I've got my little towel for cleaning and drying, and my fuel canisters wrapped up inside that. At the bottom, I have a little bowl or cup you could use if you needed to drink or eat some food in there if you needed to. I tend not to use that because I've got other bowls and cups. So the whole unit is completely self-contained. Now, they're pretty good. This is actually my second Jetboil. This is called the Jetboil Flash. I had the original Jetboil to start with, but it got used that much that it needed replacing in the end. So I got the slightly newer version. And like I said, they're completely self-contained, so even the ignition system's built in. So you just turn on the gas and away you go. Really simple, really easy. It's lightweight, they weigh about 400 grams without the fuel canister, and you will boil a litre of water in approximately 5 or 6 minutes. depending on the conditions. Obviously that's in ideal conditions. That will depend on altitude, temperature, the amount of wind. Now, even though that we've got some lovely kind of thermal shielding, I can't remember what this stuff's called, but you've got, you know, nice kind of heat management system there. So what that does is that traps heat inside and helps the stove to be more efficient. Also blocks out a little bit of wind, but as you can see there, there's still a fair amount of space for wind to blow through, and the burner size isn't really as big as some of the others. So I don't tend to use this that much anymore. I will use this if I'm just kind of going out by myself, or and I'm just going out for a little hike and I want to cook boil some water for a hot drink, or heat up some food. But generally my eldest daughter uses this now. Now the reason I don't really use this that much is because, because of this. This is the MSR Reactor. Don't worry about it saying Primus on there, that's just a Primus gas canister. This is an MSR Reactor, and this actually happens to be belong to the Jetboil. I've got a few of these that I bought. One of these comes with the Jetboil, and it's just a canister stand. So it's just really handy to keep this off the ground, because these gas canisters are not really great when it's really cold or when it's freezing. So if we go back to the Jetboil for a minute, I've tried using this in very cold conditions, and it took an absolute age to try and melt some snow. They're not really ideal for winter use. Now, if it's a little bit cold in winter, then it's not so much of an issue, but if you're at high altitude and it's below freezing, they kind of tend to struggle, because the gas canisters themselves, obviously you're not burning the liquid that's in there, you're burning the gas, so it needs to vaporize, and when it's really cold, they just tend to stay in a liquid state, so they don't vaporize, so it's really hard to get a good burn. Now, with Jetboil having such a small burner, it really kind of does struggle when it's really, really cold. You can do things like keep the gas canister in your pocket for a while to warm it up before you use it. That really helps. But again, if it's really cold, they do still struggle. Obviously, keep the pot off the ground so that it's insulated a little bit if it's on icy ground or snow. But like I said, really they're for summer, spring, autumn use. I wouldn't necessarily recommend these for winter. Now that being said, the Reactor is a lot better in the cold, purely because I think you've got a much bigger surface area on the burner. Now if I like this in here, probably shouldn't really, but there we go. If I like this, you'll see what I mean. Ooh. You've got a much bigger burner on there, and at the moment I've got a bigger gas canister. This will use the same size gas canister as the Jetboil. Obviously the Jetboil is limited in the size of the canister that will fit inside this, whereas the Reactor will fit a large canister inside its pot here. This is a 1.7 litre pot. The Jetboil, the standard, is a 1 litre pot. They do a sumo version of this, which is similar size to this, so I think it's about 1.5 litres or so, double check, but they do a bigger version. I'm going to have to turn that off, it's getting really hot. You won't be able to see that on there, but when it's lit up, you can actually see MSR on that burner. Now, you could probably see there wasn't really that much temp or heat control with the knob here. It's kind of all or nothing really with the Reactor. MSR do one called the Wind Burner, I think, which is very, very similar to the Jetboil. We've got a little bit more control with the temperature, whereas this really is a water boiling machine. This is not great for cooking. Not good for cooking. Surely that's the whole purpose. Well, join me in part 2 where I'll explain exactly what I mean by that.